Hello everyone and welcome back to AP Bio with AP Playground. Today we're covering topic 8.1, Responses to the Environment. We're starting off Unit 8 by explaining how the behavioral and physiological response of an organism is related to changes in the internal or external environment. So essentially the different kinds of behavioral responses that organisms can have and how they contribute to the success of a population and also what they're in response to. And our suggested skills, questions, and methods 3C identify experimental procedures that align with the question, including identifying dependent and independent variables, identifying appropriate controls, and justifying those appropriate controls. So, response. Organisms respond to their environment through behavioral and physiological changes. And so behavioral changes are going to be what an organism does and how it does it. And these behaviors are generally going to be a result of genetic and environmental factors, and they have the ability to change. So genetic behaviors are those that are coded into your body, while the environment can also influence those behaviors and change them. Meanwhile, a physiological change is a change in the body structure or function in response to something. So we have responses that are both in behavior but also internal physiological changes. And an example here are taxis and kinesis, and those are two types of animal movement in response to stimuli, but they differ in how the movement is directed. Taxis is a directed movement towards or away from a stimulus, while kinesis is a non-directional change in speed or turning in response to a stimulus. So this is one form of behavioral response, where now we're going to be moving towards or away from a stimulus, or moving in a certain direction as a response to a stimulus. That's a behavioral change. That's what the organism does and how it does it. We can also see phototropism, which is where plants bend over towards light. And this is going to be a change that allows them to get more sunlight, and they're reacting to where the sun is. This is a reaction to the environment, and it's going to allow them to get more nutrients. And organisms also exchange information in response to stimuli, changing behavior. For instance, we have predator warnings. So organisms are able to exchange based on certain colorations. For instance, poison dart frogs are going to have bright colorations that suggest to other organisms that, hey, I'm dangerous, I'm poisonous. And so this is like a predator warning that's a color. Or sounds saying, oh, guys, there's a predator in the area. And so organisms are able to exchange this kind of information, and as a result, their behavior will change. They're not going to go after the poison dart frog anymore. And one example of this is flight or fight response, which is where in response to a stimulus, humans are going to be either fighting or fleeing. And so this is going to affect your body in multiple ways. There's tunnel vision, accelerated heart rate, fast breathing. Your digestion is going to slow down. You have increased sweating, and the liver is going to convert glycogen to glucose in order to up the blood sugar within your body, so you're ready to do one of these responses. And so there are behavioral and physiological changes that are responses to changes within the environment. And along with these responses come communication. Organisms communicate through signals, which are stimuli that change behavior, and these can be visual signals like the warning colors we discussed in the previous slide, attractions for mating. There are audible signals such as mating songs. Some birds have to sing to each other in order to find a mate. There's tactile, where herds will interact. Members of herds are going to be interacting. Maybe there is a fight for who's going to be in charge of the pack. We have electrical signals for prey detection, and lastly chemical signals such as pheromones, which allow communication to signal about the locations of things, among other reasons for communicating. And so these can change behaviors in others and affect reproductive success, like we discussed with the visual and audible signals that provide attraction for mating. And again, here's our poison dart frog. That's going to be our warning color. And signals are used to establish dominance, find food, establish territory, and ensure reproduction. And you can see over here, bees are going to be have this certain dance that they do where they're going to be touching each other, but also other bees will be able to sense this, and that lets them know, hey, there's food in this certain direction. Pheromones are also emitted to help with this communication. For establishing dominance, we look at something like a wolf pack, where the wolves are going to communicate in order to figure out who is going to be the alpha of the wolf pack and lead. And so behaviors that we look at can be innate or learned. And innate behaviors are developmentally fixed. They're inherited and unlearned, such as reflexes. When the doctor hits your knee with a mallet and your leg jerks up, that is going to be a reflex. You didn't consciously think about doing this behavior, but this is just what happens in your body. This is your change because it is developmentally fixed. Now, learned behavior, on the other hand, is modified based on specific experience. So this is how the environment can change behavior. And we have something like conditioning, where you see an experiment such as Pavlov's dog, where Pavlov, every time he would feed his dog, would also ring a bell. And so over time, even when no food was present, Pavlov would ring a bell and the dog would begin to salivate because there was an association of bell with the food, and this was classical conditioning of the dog. And fitness favors behaviors that increase survival and reproductive success. So biological fitness is how good you are at surviving and reproducing. That means you have high fitness. And so behaviors that allow this to happen, behaviors that allow you to find mates, to find the resources, and also survive long enough to reproduce, are the ones that are going to be beneficial and selected for in an environment. And an example of these are going to be cooperative behaviors. We find cooperative behaviors so much in nature because they tend to increase the fitness of both the organism individually, but also the population as a whole. And we have things like altruism, where your individual fitness might be reduced, but the fitness of others has increased, such as warning calls, which may alert a predator to your specific location, but will save the rest of the population because they will now be warned of the presence of a predator. We also have kin selection, where you are providing aid to close relatives. So providing aid that enables other close relatives to produce offspring. So you're selecting your kin as important, and so you're going to be helping them in order to increase their fitness. And we see cooperative behaviors through herds, through flocks, through schooling behaviors. So like the school of fish, there is power in numbers, and we see that through cooperative behaviors because these fish, as a large group, they are going to appear not so easy to eat to predators, and they are going to be able to protect each other, unlike having a single individual. And so organisms are going to respond to stimuli in ways that increase their survival and reproductive success, either through innate and learned behaviors based on their environment. And they're going to be signaling to communicate with each other through visual, audible, chemical signals. And most of all, they're going to be favoring cooperative behaviors, which can increase the fitness of the entire population. This was 8.1, and we'll see you in 8.2.